Remember those old Rankin and Bass films that would air in television during the holiday seasons? Well, it turns out that there's a lost film that was created by the two animators, and it's believed to predate the original Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer's film. The footage was said to have been discovered in an abandoned storage unit in Hollywood, which also contained rare stock footage and movie stills from other well-known Rankin and Bass films. The Super 8 canister was labeled Reindeer, so it was automatically believed to be the original footage taken from Rudolph's framed movie. Knowing that this could be a major artifact in the world of Rankin and Bass, the person who discovered it kept it from themselves, and along with an old Super 8 projector. The individual, who I will keep anonymous for reasons I will explain later, viewed the footage that he/she took notes on every aspect. The following account is a combination of all the notes detailed that made about the film. The film begins with the opening title screen seen in the original Rudolph footage. The blizzard gusts etch out in the names of each of those who were most noted in creating the film, including Rankin and Bass. But one detail that I have noticed, which is especially strange for a holiday film, is that there's no audio whatsoever. Not even the sounds of the gates could be heard, let alone the holiday music which sets the mood. When the wind was near the moment of unveiling the title of the film, I already came to the conclusion that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was about to appear. But as the wind blew away from the snow, the title Randolph the Reindeer appeared. Instead of the trademark look of the title that the fans we have all come to know, the title appeared to be dull, block-shaped letters. I then knew at this point that I was viewing an entirely different film, but I pressed on, thinking that it was some type of prototype version of the original Rudolph film, and that it was never finished. The snowy winds blow away to reveal an older reindeer, who I assumed to be Randolph, but the most unnerving detail about him is that his fur was completely black instead of the brownish hue given to him in the original film. We see him casually walking through the wintry forest, showing no emotion on his face. He continues to walk until he runs with two other reindeer, one of them looking similar to Fireball. One strange detail besides the reindeer being completely black is that there's no audio of the character talking to one another. Only the sounds of grainy footage can be heard, increasing the terrifying nature of the film. The two reindeers seem to be mocking Randolph, one of the few similar traits to the original film. You can clearly see the two characters laughing at him, showing more hatred with every giggle. A zoom in of Randolph's face shows that pure anger he has towards the reindeer, his pupils being red and bloodshot in the process. The screen then changes to a real-life footage of two reindeer brawling with each other, clashing their antlers together. At this point, I knew what the film was trying to make was made by someone other than Rankin and Bass. This detail, along with the others, didn't really add up to being a joyful holiday film, but possibly a spin-off of the original Rudolph movie. The footage of the two reindeer fighting lasts for about a minute, and the screen then flips back to the puppet sequence. The mangled body of the Fireball, like a reindeer, is shown full-blown, causing me to gasp in both terror and shock. He lay there in the blood-stained snow, his entrails lying beside him. The image stayed that way for about a minute until it changed to the next scene. It was then that I came to the shocking conclusion that Randolph had viciously mauled the one reindeer, while the second one had apparently fled away in terror. The next scene shows Santa's castle, which was done in black and gray colors instead of the well-known pinkish shades. The screen was faded out to Santa and Mrs. Claus in the dining room area. Both were wearing black, colored versions of the original outfits. Santa's being the trousers and suspenders, and Mrs. Claus with her dress and apron. At this point, the audio returns to the footage, and we hear the two arguing about Christmas-related problems. Mrs. Claus spoke with an irritable tone, as if she was angry with Santa about something. Santa's responses came out in a depressed manner, dangling out some words in a gloomy fashion. The audio was once again lost, and the quality of the footage goes from mediocre to absolute crap. The scene stays on Santa and Mrs. Claus, but the two puppets are not animated into the footage. It seems as though the animators were just holding the puppets, moving them around in a childish manner. In some frames, the fingers and hands of the animators can be seen for a split second. The scene goes to Randolph strolling through the forest, but the opposite direction as opposed to the beginning of the film. Blood could be seen trickling off of his antlers as he leaves bloody hoof tracks in his gait. The scene seems to repeat itself, as if the same footage was used over and over again until the scene changed. But one thing I'd noticed is that there was no sign of any forest clutters from the original film. Rabbits, seals, raccoons, and even birds couldn't even be seen. It wasn't until a few seconds into the sequence when I noticed what was lying in the snow as Randolph continued walking. As he walked by, the carcasses of birds, rabbits, and raccoons lined the snow beside him. The most disturbing detail about this is that the bodies appeared to have been eaten by something other than an animal. Randolph continues to walk, not stopping even once to notice the bodies beside him. But before the scene changed, I noticed something lying next to the last body in the screen. I rewound the footage and nearly vomited. Lying next to the carcass of the rabbit was a knife and fork, both covered in crimson red blood. The screen fades out of the elf workshop, filled with busy elves building toys. A faint bell can be heard, and the elves begin to exit the room. We see Hermie about to stand up, but is immediately assaulted by the head elf. He begins screaming at Hermie, but the audio is gone, so all that you can make out was two characters mouth words. One strange aspect about the head elf is that he looked more primitive, with a shaggy beard and tattered clothes. Hermie sported worn-out clothing as well, and both characters seemed to have large scars on their cheeks and hands. At first, I was confused about the detail, thinking that they were errors in the sculpting of their faces, but I then came to a conclusion that sent shivers down my spine. Santa had forced the elves to work non-stop on the toys, and any disobedient elves were whipped. The head elf finished his conversation with Hermie and walked out of the toy shop. Hermie was now honestly alone, a single light showing above his head. For a few seconds he simply stares at the toy train he'd been working on before. He then reaches over and grabs a mallet, and proceeds to strike the train repeatedly. The screen stays on Hermie as he emotionlessly smashes the train. The camera zooms in and out of the train, which has now been reduced to a pile of wooden splinters. Then the scene fades out. We now see Randolph standing in his cave next to a cardboard box. He simply stares at the opposite wall for a good 5 minutes, blinking. There is no sign of his parents. I could only expect something bad to happen, seeing the nature of the film. I then froze in front of the screen, where Randolph picks up a revolver from out the box. He slowly puts the gun under his chin and pulls back the hammer. The scene changes before he could pull his trigger. A title card appears on the screen saying, 4 months later, and we see a large group of elves and reindeer. All elves are wearing black elf uniforms, and we see a coffin in front of the crowd, containing Randolph. The most eerie aspect about him is that he shows no signs of decomposition, as if he had died the day before. The crowd then lines up and begins to say their farewells to Randolph. After a few elves pass by, a female reindeer comes up to the coffin and places a blood-soaked antler next to his casket. I assume that she was Fireball's mother, who still grieved over the death of her son. Santa and Mrs. Claus comes next, then the head elf, leaving Hermie for last. He steps up to the coffin and begins to say farewell. Near the end of his statement, audio returns to the film. He then bends over to the casket and whispers, "There's a storm coming," into Randolph's ear before walking away. The last few seconds of the scene show a zoom in on Randolph's face, which still has a massive hole in his head from where the bullet exited, and then the film ends. Authorities later found the person in his or her room who had gone mentally ill upon viewing the movie. The addition, the phrase, "there's a storm coming," was written in blood, found on several of the walls of the house. The body of a raccoon was discovered in the individual's bedroom. The actual film itself mysteriously disappeared after its first viewing. To this day, the authorities and psychologists are still unaware what caused the person's symptoms, or more importantly, why. I have this single warning for all of you out there who are reading this. If you happen to find a copy of this film or the actual reel itself, do not under any circumstances watch it, in hopes to save anyone else from viewing it. As of now, we can only hope that this film is never discovered again. If it is found, however, I can only hope that the individual has read the warning beforehand and will destroy the film out of fear and safety. But if you choose not to heed my warning, then you watch the film, then I'm afraid to say, it's already too late for you. And that, my little shadows, was Randolph the Reindeer, a Rankin and Bass creepypasta. My final thoughts on the story? Oh my goodness gracious, you guys, I have been requested this one up the freaking butt. And honestly, I kind of hesitated a little bit from narrating this one because a lot of other people have already done it. But you know something? People wanted this story. People wanted me to narrate it. And if anything, you know, it just gives... It's interesting. It's an interesting story, I will admit. But let's get started with the actual review itself and not go rambling on. What did I like about this story? Well, for one, I like the fact of the matter that the story in of its own self was actually kind of realistic. at least from the beginning to the start, to the actual storyline itself. I mean, the idea that there's like a lost episode more or less, or a lost movie of like the Rankin and Bass Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is actually kind of interesting, and the Randolph character himself was actually a good character to be included. You know, he's the kind of person that's more or less the opposite of Rudolph. He's just a crazy, psychotic, deer. Well, reindeer specifically. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, he's certainly something. I can say that for a full-on fact. Now, another thing about the story that I liked was that it was paced out pretty well. You know, everything just didn't go automatically into gore territory and things like that. It actually built up to everything until, like, the very end. Plus, the mysterious part, with, them saying, there's a storm coming and everything, was also a good little touch. Now, with that being said, though, I do have a lot of negatives to say about the story. And for one, personally, I have this. Why is this story so, might I ask again why the story is so heavily praised? I mean, I'm not trying to give the author any crap or anything, but there were certainly parts of the story in of its own self that just didn't really make a whole lot of sense, and if anything, really landed itself into really nasty cliche territory. And don't even get me started about the ending. But let's start off with some of the gore things. Now, I will, say right here and right now that, I understand that, Randolph is a psychotic motherfucker and things like that. But even then, though, I mean, some of the gory aspects of it were really unnecessary. And the idea at that part where Randolph takes a gun, I mean, the guy has hooves. How the heck is he going to be able to hold a freaking gun in his hoof? I mean, I know it's a cartoon and everything, and logic does not exactly apply there. But even then, though, it's still kind of what? And why would he kill himself? Like, that didn't make much sense. It didn't actually explain the reasoning why it did that. There's obviously the gore parts and everything. The torn up animals, a knife and fork. I mean, all those kind of things. Maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit, but I think that was kind of more or less unnecessary. I mean, and I think the main problem that I have with it is the fact that there was a lot of gore mentioned in the story itself. Like, a lot of it. Like, the entrails spewing out of the stomach of the dead reindeer, the bloody antlers, the blood everywhere, the ripped up animals. I mean, come on, people. What is it, Sonic.exe? I mean, come on. It didn't exactly do too well with the gore. But that's not the worst part about this story, though. The worst part about this story would have to be the ending. Oh my gosh, how cliche can you really get with an ending? The ending killed this story for me entirely. I have to be honest. It started off so beautifully, but the ending in and of its own self just went down to absolute garbage levels. I mean, seriously, somebody going mentally insane upon seeing a stupid, stupid movie or whatever. I mean, come on. That's been done so many times before. The SpongeBob bootleg tape, honestly, is a lot more realistic than this part. I mean, seriously, if the aftermath itself, like I said, is very unrealistic. A person going mentally ill and killing a raccoon and saying, there's a storm coming and blood and all over the place. I mean, come on. It's ridiculous. It's extremely ridiculous. Nobody sits there and goes crazy because of a stinking, creepy little film. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't, especially with something like this. I mean, it doesn't happen. But then we have the other part that I hate the most about the story is the warning at the end. Like, do not under any circumstances watch it. It hopes to save everybody else. Dude, it's a freaking film. That's all it is. It's a film. It's a stupid reel. Nothing about this entire thing could drive or should drive anybody insane. If anything, it's weird and unnerving and maybe a bit creepy, I'll admit. But I don't think that something like this would be enough to sit there and drive someone to absolute insanity. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, the ending, like I said, people, the ending killed the story for me entirely. And that's a problem. Now, normally, I would sit there and rip stories apart, that do this kind of thing. I mean, I usually do. And I'm willing to kind of let it pass on some stories, but for a story like this that is extremely well written, to go and use this cheap kind of ending, it's not excusable to me. It really is not excusable. I can't give this story anything particularly great because it doesn't do its job. I mean, if the entire aftermath had been cut out, then the story would honestly have a lot more of a higher rating than what I'm about to give it. But even then, though, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, I'm quite sure some of you will disagree with me when I say that, but that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own personal opinions. Respect my opinion, and I will happily respect yours. My final rating of the story, I'm giving this one a 4 out of 10. I'm sorry if that disappoints a lot of you. I really do. But I can't give this story any more praise than just a 4. The main reason I'm giving it a 4 is because I liked the story itself. Like the actual description of the lost episode. I found that to be rather original and interesting. The gore was a bit too much, but still. I mean, it was an interesting interesting kind of concept. And the way that this one was kind of the way the episode was taken was also interesting as well. But even then, though, the ending, like I said, killed it a lot. And if anything, it's a good thing I'm only going to give it a 4 out of 10. Because normally this entire thing would give it a 0 out of 10, but I can't do that because there were some things about the story that I found enjoyable. But unfortunately, though, to me, this was a bit of a disappointment of a story. I mean, I hate to say that, though. I mean, I really hate to say this, because this one was good. The story was amazing. The way that the episode was going out was good. The ending, though, I'm sorry, it just killed it for me. That's the reason why I have to give it a really, really, really low rating on this one. And I apologize in retrospect if people don't like that. But it's true. So what did you guys personally think about this story? Did you all enjoy it? Did you not? What would you have done to also help make the story a lot better? If anything, I'd like to hear your own thoughts on it. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode. And like always, roll the outro.